Again, I see the concerns, but I don't think it's going away. Hello, and welcome back to a podcast where I talk about all of the chaos and fuckery associated with rediscovering yourself in your 30s, building a business along the side to try to get out of corporate life and everything in between. Is that my new intro? Who knows? You'll probably hear another 5 more along the way. But today we are going to talk to something business related, but also just a trending topic in the kind of chaotic and fuckery realm. So I'm going to talk about it, and my opinions on it are definitely going to piss some people off. I have no ands, ifs, or buts about it that my opinions on this topic are going to piss some people off, and there's going to be a lot of leftists that come in and say that I am a right-wing MAGA nonsense because of my opinions on this topic. Today we are talking about artificial intelligence. So, I would like to start with the chaos of it all. The chaos is the inability to think of AI in any sort of nuance. Either you are pro-AI or you are anti-AI, and that cannot live in a gray space at all. You either are anti-environmental, saving the environment, you're anti, the little people in gaming being able to build their own PCs. You're anti, creativity because AI has taken over in a lot of creative spaces, things like that. Or you are, pro it all, right? You're pro supporting creators, you're pro saving the environment, there is no nuance when it comes to AI. And unfortunately, I live in a space where I have to think about it in some form of nuance, because as a creator, I hate it. As a creator who would love to have enough money to pay editors and everything else, I will when I have the money. I still, as a creator, also hate generative AI. I think people do some weird shit with their chatbots. I think people have got some weird ass relationships with the chatbots. But I don't see anything wrong with prompting something like ChatGPT to write you an outline for a script that you came up with the idea for. You have to give it the prompt, and then editing that script to be you and, that outline to really figure it out so that you don't have to start the initial. I see nothing wrong with that. I do see plenty wrong, especially when there are plenty of freelance artists out there that work at various scales of funding. Also, Canva exists, but Canva also has an AI feature, so I don't even know that saying Canva exists is a valid argument in this realm. But I don't like it in the thumbnail. I don't like it in the all content creators should use AI to edit their content, because even though I do use it for something like a clipping feature, right? I've done all of the initial editing for the video. I use an AI tool to down clip, and then I select those clips, and even then I still edit a lot of them. I cut them down to make them shorter. I'm just bad at picking out hooks, so I let, an AI tell me what ones that I should pick out. Okay, well, I still really down select. I don't go with everything when it comes to clips. And the main thing I use AI for when it comes to clipping is subtitles. I use subtitles a lot on TikTok. I use the native subtitle tool, which I'm pretty sure is an AI tool in TikTok. Things that are more mundane in the content creation world, like not thumbnails. I definitely don't use AI in my thumbnails. That's not what I'm saying. Clipping for shorts and creating captions and things like that. Absolutely, I use AI. Even dead space removers, but I go back through and check those. I don't trust those always. I'm a little bit more particular about how I do that. So those are useful tools that AI can be used for, in my opinion. Now, yes, there's always going to be the environmental argument, but the reality is the minute we moved to cloud computing was the minute that argument became a possibility, right? It's not just AI that are creating all of these server farms. Cloud computing does too. These server farms, I've worked in scenarios where we have our own server farms. So it's not just these big AI companies that are contributing to that issue that needs these constant cooling systems. It's really not. Your companies that do any sort of large computing are also contributing to it. And yes, AI is contributing to it a little bit more, but any form of cloud server maintenance, so if you use iCloud, or if you use Amazon's cloud service, whatever it is, or if you use I can't think of any other cloud services right now, Google Drive, whatever those items are, your data is being stored somewhere. they're being stored in servers. So yes, AI might be ramping that up, but it was already a problem before AI was even really being talked about. So from an environmental perspective, I do not feel like that is the hill to die on when it comes to AI. As a creator, I see it. As a creator, I see not wanting to get junk slop AI channels on YouTube and have them monetized because you're literally being paid to do nothing at that point. You have some AI bot generating your entire content and you just slap it up on YouTube and get the bills paid. Okay, fine. I see an argument against that. As a creator, I also see an argument against using it for thumbnail generation. As a creator, I see an argument over like using it for editing. If I could afford to pay an editor right now, I wouldn't use even the smallest tools of AI. But I do use some of those tools as a creator right now because it helps save time. That is genuinely where I consider it. I don't use it for any form of art. Thumbnails, the actual video generation, a large majority of my editing, my end screens, I don't use it for those things. I don't use generative in that sense. I do use a lot of language models for things like captions and clipping and intelligence like that. That'll allow you to find those viral moments, if you will, for lack of a better way of putting it, out of your video without having to do it or guesswork yourself. I do use it. And that's because I have to use it at my 9-to-5. It's literally being forced upon me. And that's where the unique nuance of my life situation currently comes into play. Recently, I did an interview with some engineers that were looking into AI generated content and can people tell the difference and things like that. I think the ethical concerns around AI are a bigger concern than even the environment or it taking jobs or anything like that. There is a lot of ethical, potentially legal issues with AI, especially generative, where you can do things like deep fakes that I absolutely don't support. And I also think there should be more awareness of how to tell the difference between an AI generated product, especially for the older generations, versus normal content. Because the thing is yes, platforms like TikTok have the AI generated label, but that label also gets applied if you use a voice filter. And realistically, not all voice filters are AI. So there might just be some AI backend that's allowing you to apply that voice filter. That doesn't necessarily mean the voice filter was generated by AI. And that's where some of the nuance in AI needs to be. Because I really don't care if someone uses a silly voice filter. I have used plenty of them on TikTok and otherwise. But some of these AI filters, I get the point. We don't want to be generating things that are just so unrealistic but also look realistic at the same time that people would believe them. And we don't want to allow people to generate child porn and all of that. The ethical side, I understand. But from a tech perspective, as an engineer and seeing, this AI bubble, and it is a bubble, I do agree with a lot of people that say the AI bubble will eventually pop. The tech is useful for certain things. In the engineering world, where we have to do a bunch of mundane data analysis and history leaves with the person, or knowledge sometimes leaves with the person when they retire. Being able to prompt a language model to go get me all of that information, awesome. I don't have to dig for 4 hours to go find that information. And AI's not at a place where that's accurate yet, but it's getting there. The language models are much further progressed than generative and can be trained pretty easily in comparison to generative. And I'm okay with that type of use of AI. It's basically just Google, but it actually has the capability to learn from its mistakes. And that can, if you're into dystopian futures and all of the chaos that I like to read, that can be a little nerve-wracking. The idea of some of these things being able to create personalities of their own. Yeah, again, I see the concerns, but I don't think it's going away. The unfortunate part is when this AI bubble bursts, because I do believe it will, that doesn't mean it's going away. It will be so deeply ingrained in corporate culture at that point that the only place it likely will hurt when it goes away is those creative spaces. Because so many of the creatives will have been replaced or run out of the market by these tools that they're not going to be willing to come back for what they previously were, for lack of a better way of putting it, or come back at all because they've gone off and found something else to do. I think in corporate world, you will benefit from learning how to actually utilize an AI. But in the creative space, I also want to fight back and say, go away. We should never be using this. As an ethical concern, or just a concern as a human, if I don't look at my technical side or my creative side, I look at the fact that the creator of ChatGPT has once been quoted to say something along the lines that he regrets releasing it because he's worried of what it might be used for in the hands of adversaries. And that part I can see. And adversaries doesn't necessarily have to mean the country's adversaries. It could literally just mean your adversary as a regular, everyday human. Someone who doesn't like you at work could take that generative AI and pass around, I'm thinking Jan from The Office beach photo, but it was never real, and run you out of a job based on something that was never real. And that's the type of revenge, adversary type things, forgetting the, national world stage of what AI could be used for. Because that's also terrifying when you start adding AI into the concept of war and people discovering weaponry that has had AI on it and trying to reverse engineer it and allow it to learn on different things. And now what it was originally used for is the target, and AI in a military realm do not mix. And that's a whole different conversation. AI should not be allowed in the military realm, and especially not with an administration as unresponsible as this one has proven to be when it comes to AI. However, don't think it's going away. I don't think the environmental argument is one worth having, truthfully. Because if it's not AI, it's something else in the tech world that's going to create those server farms. If it's not server farms, it's nuclear power plants. If it's not, we are losing that environmental debate, and it should have started years before it did. I don't see a world in which tech specifically progresses enough to get enough people on board with some of these environmental standards. Unless we choose to work with countries that are more advanced than us, that are currently adversaries. I see a way where, all of the world's tech leaders come together to create a better environmental standard for a world stage, because this is not a US problem, it is a world problem. However, that will not happen with this administration, I do not believe, and that's not really anything to do. It's just the way this administration behaves. That's not a policy thing. That is a everyone is our enemy thing. There doesn't seem to be any real push amongst the way this administration moves to work as a collective with other countries to solve problems that exist, whether, you believe in the environmental argument or not. Pick an issue that exists and genuinely think about, would this administration work with other countries that might have the answer that we don't, to solve the problem here and potentially at a larger scale? I think the answer is no. That's just my 2 cents on that one. So I don't think the environmental argument when it comes to AI is a worthwhile argument. However, I do think an economy argument could be made. I would love to see, and I'm not looking at any notes right now, I'm just speaking off the cuff and chaos, and I'm sure in a future episode I might do some research. But I would love to see if there is research, and you're listening to this and you know what the research is, I'd love to see it on what the analysis is if AI was to take over every job role it is projected to take over. So we're thinking HR, hiring, the whole hiring process. Would companies, now that they don't need HR representatives in the hiring realm, keep HR representatives for the I've hired people, now they need to, speak with someone that is an outside piece? I don't know that HR would continue to exist in a world where AI. So that's an entire department. AI in theory, if trained properly, could do a lot of accountants' jobs. I said in theory. That is a big theory. However, that would be something, a lot of people complain about taxes. The government, who loves AI currently, would potentially create a tool, in theory, that is all AI run to do your taxes for you. I'm not saying it needs AI to do that, because there have been plenty of tools in the past, but knowing this government, that's something that they would do, in theory. Let's see. The point being is I would love to just see the numbers of what they project AI to take over, what roles, right? What that would mean for our economy when it comes to jobs gained and jobless, what's that word? Unemployment. There we go. I would love to see what the projected numbers of unemployment are, because even in just the corporate space, you're going to lose a lot of positions to AI if they implement it the way certain companies are planning on it being implemented. Both at the I create the the hardware, there's a lot of companies throwing all of their revenue into AI and focusing solely on that and starting to pull out of the consumer game in the RAM and GPU realm. And then on top of that, you also have the unemployment on the creative side, right? Editors, thumbnail creators, just artists, authors. There's a lot of, people who are trying to prove that AI can write books. God, that's a scary thought. There would be literally no nuance in that conversation if AI was writing books, but it is definitely something that people are thinking about. And I hate to say it, but until that economical impact is realized and people are actually losing jobs because of AI taking their place, we are not going to see the impact of AI, and no one screaming from the rooftops on the internet saying AI bad is really going to do anything until those economical impacts are seen. And even then, given current economy, I don't know that this administration would give a shit. So we might be stuck in this shit until the next, and even then, who knows? So yes, I see the ethical concerns, I see the realistic economic concerns of AI. However, tech very rarely regresses. I'm not saying it's an impossible thing for AI to just go away completely and slither into yes, social media apps are a never-ending cycle of new ones come out all the time, but that's because tech never regresses. Very rarely regresses, right? Taking away AI at this point, even if the bubble did burst and these companies that have put all of their hardware into AI does start reverting back into consumer-focused products, that's not AI going away. That's AI being used for different things. I don't see it going away in the corporate realm. I really don't. I see AI being integrated more into AR and VR and us getting, if we're talking about dystopian future, because that's what I love to talk about is dystopian futures, I see a reality where Ready Player One is mixed with Handmaid's Tale, which are almost polar opposite dystopian futures. But that is kind of what we're seeing right now. We're seeing people complaining about lack of children and immodesty and lewd culture. And then on top of that, we're seeing this AI tech run conglomerate. And Ready Player One is kind of all about, the consumerism, the tech, trying to put ads on everything and living in an alternate reality because your real reality is so trash. They've destroyed the environment. Everyone's stacked on top of each other. So you've got that realm. But then on top of that, you've got the Handmaid's Tale. So the tech side and the consumerism side is not agreeing with the religious force everyone to have babies side. They never will, because they are polar opposite dystopian futures. In order for you to have a tech-run world, you destroy everything that Handmaid's Tale wants. And yes, I'm comparing dystopian futures that are not reality, and I'm talking in nonsense, if you will, but there are most dystopian futures, and I think this is my fascination with them, most dystopian future books are written to some extent in the line of reality and what possibly could happen based on other world events that have happened. So yeah, it is possible we see a collision of Ready Player One or maybe even WALL-E and Handmaid's Tale, which is your tech bros are gonna fight your religious Nazis. And I said that. I didn't mean to say it, but it works. I'm gonna stick with it. Those two groups are gonna end up fighting. They cannot live harmoniously. And AI is probably going to be the tipping point of who wins, in my opinion. Technology in general, right? IVF is a well-argued technological advancement in religious circles, in fundy right-wing extremist circles. Some believe it's what brings them more children, and others believe that it is killing babies. What it is, it's science. I don't look that deep into it, to be honest. But AI, I believe, is going to be the tipping point of the right wing. Because realistically speaking, the two cannot live harmoniously together. You cannot have a world run by AI and tech bros that is full of lewd and obscene things and also want a Christian nationalist baseline. You just can't. They don't live together. Neither does, the argument of AI in corporate world versus creative world. Creative, absolutely. Keep AI out of creative. It's terrible at it anyway. Like, let's be real. Even the tools that I do use a little tiny bit of it for, I do so much back editing in the shit I use AI for that it's like, I often wonder, is it even worth it? And on top of that, in the corporate world, I love to not look for stupid shit. So if it can make the corporate life faster, I'm not mad. I don't see a world where AI goes away. I don't love it. I definitely wish we would focus more on the ethical concerns of it. I don't hate it for mundane tasks like clipping or captions. I genuinely don't. I'm sorry. I mean, maybe when I have stupid money, I can pay someone to do that instead. But for right now, it's mundane. And that's what technology is supposed to help you with. It's supposed to make your life easier and better. It doesn't always, but that's always been my philosophy with technology, is if I'm going to use it, it better be improving my life rather than not. It's the same thing in baking, right? A lot of people are elitists with certain things. Oh, I have to have a hand mixer. I can't use a stand mixer because it'll overmix it or whatever. Or I have to have a KitchenAid, or I have to have whatever, Hexclad. Or point being is you've got your elitists and then your people who say what I am buying will improve my experience in the kitchen versus just buying it to have the tool. Air fryers. A lot of people get made fun of for having air fryers, but goddamn, they're the best tool in the kitchen I own. Not even gonna lie. I'm on my, second or third one because I use mine so often. Air fryers. Anyways, point being is technology, when you're incorporating it into places that typically shouldn't be, like the creative space, should be helping those creatives, whether it be marketing their creative thing or speeding it up without impacting the creativity process of it all, or payment portals. I don't know. My point being, right, I couldn't be a creator on the internet without my computer. For gaming purposes, for editing purposes, for whatever. That's technology that improves my life. I could be I could be a creator without AI. Whereas when I go to the engineering side, the implementation of AI in my day-to-day, not only do I not have a choice because I don't run the company, it does make things easier and makes it so I get it done faster so I can do other things. And that's, I guess, in my current realm, what is most important to me. Get work done so I can go have more fun and be the creative and get into hobbies. And I will stop using AI in the creative space entirely when I have the money to pay an editor. I just don't have it right now, and in order to build that base so that I do have an editor in the future and am paying people who freelance for thumbnails and things like that. And again, I will preface, I don't use it for thumbnails. I make my own thumbnails. I fear that is pretty obvious with how bad I am at it. Anyways, I use it for things like tag research and clipping, and I don't even really use it for descriptions. Sometimes I'll use it to outline a description, but I don't even press the button to generate that. A lot of my tools, it gives it to me anyway. Point being is it has a place for smaller creators, I think, for sure. As long as they know where their boundaries are. Language models versus generative, in my opinion, is where the boundary in the creative space falls. As long as you understand your ethical concerns and, even legal concerns, people using ChatGPT as lawyers and physicians and shit like that. No, y'all are fucking crazy. It's no different than Dr. Google, but still y'all are fucking crazy. I struggle with AI. And that is a lot of, AI to me is the ultimate fuckery topic. Because I struggle with it. And I think a lot of people who can see the cool things that can be done with it also struggle with it because they don't want to look like this horrible person. And in today's day and age, horrible person generally means right-wing MAGA extremist. They don't want to look like they support that side at all, so they don't want to support any sort of nuance. And, you know, some people are making ableist commentary when it comes to AI and the use of it. I don't know that I buy that one, truthfully speaking. It's fine if, you know, disabled, as long as you're not selling it, I guess. If you want to, you know, experience creating art and don't have the physical ability to, and you're not selling it, because I mean, a lot of language translators now are starting to utilize AI, so communication can be impacted by it and things like that. I understand the argument. I think I would need to view that one when it comes to ableist commentary around not using AI. I think I would need to view that on a case-by-case basis, because I think some of the arguments are silly. But again, that's where nuance comes in, and so much of this world, and maybe it's just I live too much on the internet, but I feel like even in real life when I have these conversations with people, I run into a lot of people that have no capability of speaking in nuance. No capability of doing research for themselves and just post absolute nonsense. And it's not just post, but like speak absolute nonsense. And I have to be the one to kind of go, hey, maybe we don't do that. And explain to some of these grown adults in my life why some of their commentary definitely shouldn't be posted publicly, but also probably should be reevaluated. I don't know. But like I said, I am open to an open conversation about AI. Where is your stance on it? It is a very nuanced, chaotic, full of fuckery topic for me. I see where people argue, especially on the creative side, why it's bad. You know, when ballets start using AI generated art for their posters for the Nutcracker, you could have actually done a photo shoot with a photographer and your dancers to create that poster. Why did you AI generate it? I get it. I definitely get it. When you have the means to do so, you absolutely should. But for more mundane, nuanced, stupid shit, and I'm not talking like things that you can Google and not use AI for. I'm just talking about, you know, clipping or captions or data analysis or financial spreadsheet, whatever. Mundane shit no one wants to do. Yeah. Or that is expensive to pay someone else to do in the creator space. That isn't a creative image. Yeah. I don't know. I feel icky using it often, but I don't feel so icky about it. Icky's also a weird word to be using as a 30-year-old. Anyways, I don't feel great about AI because of the lack of regulation around it right now and what it's capable of, lack of control in what it's being trained on as well. I don't agree with, you know, letting it run free in military world. That sounds like a bad life decision. But I also can see where it does help people. I also, unfortunately, don't think the environmental impact is worth arguing. Genuinely don't. Because most of these AI bots are already trained and have already done the damage. It's just that simple. And server farms existed long before AI, and they were only going to get worse as we pushed more towards cloud computing. There is very limited we could have done pre-AI and even post-AI to roll back that server farm impact. And I don't think the environmental argument is worth arguing until we have a group of adults in the government working with other adults in other governments to solve a bigger problem. And that's just my 2 cents on it. I don't think environmental is what you fight with AI. I think ethical and legal is what you fight. And economical impact of all of these positions being replaced by non-people. And what that means on the world stage, but also here locally. That's where I think you start. If you truly are looking to try to get rid of it, which I don't think is happening, personally. It's a lot of chaos and a whole lot of fuckery that a lot of us can't control, but it is an interesting topic. So, what are your thoughts on AI? Does it need to be burned to the ground and no one ever use it again? Is it a useful tool in some cases? Or is it something we should be going all in on and people who talk about the AI bubble are completely wrong? Should it be a political thing? Is it, is being pro-AI strictly a right-wing thing and anti-AI strictly a leftist thing? Is that, when did we turn on AI? Because I distinctly remember a lot of people using AI filters and things like that, and no one really saying anything. So when did we turn on AI? When do you think we turned on AI? Answers to all of these questions can be left in the comments below, as I am open to any conversation and hearing other people's opinions as I try to redefine who I am in my 30s while also dealing with life's chaos and fuckery and just the chaos and fuckery of living in the United States of America right now as a grown-ass adult in younger millennial and elder Gen Z generation. But for now, that was a lot of fuckery, and I'm gonna go get into some chaos.